What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Okay, so it's question and answer time. I have a couple of comments. I'll probably spend most of my time on one comment because I really want to hammer this home, because we have politicians out there that are saying things and people will believe what they're saying. They won't do their research. They won't look into the information. And a lot of what politicians say, they're embellishing or they're just straight out lying. Okay, they're saying something is bigger than what it really is, or they're just lying to you and hoping that you don't do the research. So I want to read this comment, and I'm just going to read the first portion because that's what I really want to focus on. It's coming from Philip. Philip, thank you for the comment. And he says, the new law, and he's talking about the Big Beautiful Law, or Big Beautiful Bill. So the new law includes a provision that eliminates federal income taxes on Social Security benefits for most beneficiaries. And then he says, providing relief to individuals and couples. Additionally, it provides an enhanced deduction for taxpayers age 65 or older, ensuring that retirees can keep more of what they have earned. The last portion that he wrote there, that's very true. Okay. Now I want to talk about the beginning, the first part of what he was writing, because there was a letter that was sent out to everyone receiving Social Security benefits or everyone who has signed up for a My Social Security account. So I received the same letter. It said up to 90% of people are now not going to have to worry about paying taxes on Social Security benefits. It says that for individuals. And that is very, very misleading. And I'm going to tell you why it's misleading. When we're looking at the elimination of taxes, you remember the promise. President Trump was out there saying no taxes on Social Security. He didn't say no taxes on most people receiving Social Security. He said no taxes on Social Security. So everyone receiving Social Security benefits should not have to pay taxes on Social Security. That was the promise. Now, the reality is this. About 64% of people currently, before this bill was passed, they're not paying taxes on their Social Security benefits. Either they're able to use deductions in order to not have to pay taxes, or they don't earn enough to pay taxes on their Social Security benefits. That is already, that's been going on. Okay, that last year, those numbers were coming from last year. Now, what the Big Beautiful Bill did, and in the past, I've been talking about this Big Beautiful Bill for a while when it comes to taxes and Social Security. What the Big Beautiful Bill did is it changed it from 64% to 88%. And so doing the quick math there, what is that? 33%. So it changed it by 33%. Now you have 33% more people that don't have to pay taxes on their Social Security benefits. That's what the Big Beautiful Bill did. So we really can't count the 64% that already didn't have to pay taxes. We can only really count the 33%. And so if a politician's out there saying, well, look, we eliminated taxes, the Big Beautiful Bill eliminated taxes for 90% of the people receiving Social Security benefits. That's not true. It eliminated it for about 33% because the other 64%, they weren't paying taxes anyway. And so you see how this could be dangerous, because you can have politicians out there, and we need to know the politicians, if they're being honest with us, we need to know that. If they're being dishonest, we also need to know that. But instead of them saying, we changed it, so now 33% more people can receive Social Security, don't have to pay taxes on their Social Security benefits. Instead of them saying that, it sounds better to say 90%. And then you have people posting comments saying that very same thing. The Big Beautiful Bill did this. 90% of people no longer have to pay taxes on their Social Security benefits. That's not what it says. That's not what the Big Beautiful Bill is doing. Okay, and you need to figure that out for yourself if you think it's a good bill or a bad bill. But I'm just telling you the facts. This is what's going on. And so I just wanted to address that. Philip, like I said, thank you for the comment. But the reality is the Big Beautiful Bill, if we didn't have the Big Beautiful Bill in place, 64% of people would not have to pay taxes. Now we've been able to increase that to 88%. That's all it's doing. And so we can't say, well, the big beautiful bill is this great bill that's eliminating taxes on people receiving Social Security benefits, because it's not doing that. It's helping about 33% more. 1/3 of the people it's helping. The other people, they were already not having to pay taxes. Okay, next comment is coming from Lorraine. Lorraine, thank you for the comment. And she's asking about the stimulus check. She said, whatever happened to that? We never got it. And that's very true. You had, and I believe she's referring to the dividend check. So we heard about this $5,000 that were going to be going out to families. And that was, now understand this. You're going to have a lot of different things going on, right? You're going to have politicians saying things. In this situation, you had a CEO that came out and said, this would be great. Doge is saving all this money for the American people. And so it would be great to provide this $5,000 dividend check, money back, a refund to the American people. And Elon Musk heard about this, and he said, this sounds like a great idea. I'm going to run it by the president. Ran it by President Trump. President Trump also said that it sounds like a good idea. Now, the goal for Doge was to be able to save $2 trillion. That's the initial goal. And then they had to revise that. They revised it down to $1 trillion. And then a couple months later, they revised it again, and they revised it down to $150 billion. Now, at $2 trillion, that's where they were talking about this $5,000 dividend check, this stimulus check that would go out to families, taxpayers, basically is what they were saying. And so because they're not going to be able to save $2 trillion, that's pretty much out the window when it comes to 5,000. But now we can look, okay, if it's going to be $1 trillion, well, then maybe 2,500 they could send out to families. Well, they're not going to be able to get to the $1 trillion. And so now we're at about 150 billion, 160 billion. And so now what type of stimulus check are they going to be able to send out to the American people? It's probably not going to be much. And so they're not even talking about this anymore. And because they passed this big, beautiful bill, and this is a tax and spend bill, so we're looking at, I think the latest numbers from the CBO, it's going to be 3.3 trillion to $4 trillion added to our national debt over a 10-year period. And so because of that big bill, they don't really have, they're probably not going to be able to get any support from conservative Republicans to move forward a stimulus check. Now, we'll have to see. It's possible in 2026 because 2026 is an election year. And we could see in the midterms, we could see if Republicans are doing really bad, looking at the numbers and polling and all that, they might look at this as, hey, we need to do something in order to try to win in the midterms because they want to hold the House and hold the Senate. And if it looks like they're not going to be able to do that, then perhaps they could provide some type of a stimulus and call it this dividend check. But that's the only way that I could see that even possibly happening. And we have a lot to look for. And we also have to look at what's going to be happening. How is our economy going to be? Because if our economy is bad, if we go into a recession, then it's more likely that we'll see some type of stimulus. And that will be, both parties will say, yes, we need some type of stimulus. But if our economy is, our economy right now is rocky, but we're still, our economy is still growing. If we get to a point where it stops growing and we fall into a recession, if we're looking at inflation, if inflation skyrockets, which we have economists out there that are saying that they think it's going to skyrocket as a result of tariffs. If we see that stuff happening, well, it would be wrong to provide stimulus checks at that point. If we're seeing inflation and you provide stimulus checks, we're going to see even more inflation. So that could be a situation where they say, no, we can't provide any type of stimulus because it would be the wrong thing to do, economically speaking. But if we see the reverse, if we see that recession, if we see a situation where our economy is on life support, well, they're going to need to stimulate the economy. And that's when they're going to start talking about how can we stimulate the economy, lower interest rates, provide stimulus, get people to want to spend more money. And that will help the economy. So that could be a way that we see it. But the reality right now, the dividend checks, I think that's gone. We probably won't hear any more about that. And the major reason for that is because we were never in a situation where we were going to be able to save $2 trillion anyway. That wasn't going to happen. And because that wasn't going to happen, and they had to revise it down to $150 billion, and then you pass a big, beautiful bill, and the big, beautiful bill is basically going to eat all that. And then we're going to be adding to our national debt, maybe $3-4 trillion because of all of that. And that's one of the reasons why Elon Musk was really upset. He was really upset because he was trying to do all of this cutting, with Doge. And then we find out it doesn't even matter because they have this big spending bill that's going to eat all of the savings that he was trying to save for the American people. And so, to answer your question, when it comes to stimulus checks, there's only one way that I think we'll see a stimulus check, and that is if we fall into a deep recession. If we fall into a deep recession, we're going to have to stimulate the economy, and that's when they'll start talking about some type of stimulus for the American people. But other than that, I don't see any situation other than if politicians just want to say, well, we want to give the American people something in order to, right before the midterms, in order to try to gain favor and win some votes. That's the only thing I can see. And that still would be a hard sell. But if we fall into a recession, there's going to be no choice. They're going to have to stimulate the economy. And the only two ways that they can do that, or the best two ways for them to do that, lower interest rates and go ahead with some type of stimulus for the American people as well as for businesses. So hopefully that answers that question. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.